All right, here we go. I'm going to start by reading something that my son and I did. He was showing me the difference between some ChatGPT stuff, so let's get to it. This is the difference with, it's just amazing to me the difference that a large language model will give you depending on the quality of the question. So let's go, let's read it. So relational versus substance ontology. So here's the question. Please write a one-page essay on relational versus substance ontology. So ChatGPT said, ontology, the study of being and existence, has long been a central theme in philosophy. Two prominent views in ontological theory are relational and substance ontology, both of which offer distinct perspectives on the nature of reality. These two approaches are concerned with the fundamental nature of objects, events, and their interrelations with the universe. While substance ontology focuses on the intrinsic properties of entities, relational ontology emphasizes the interconnections and relations that define and give meaning to existence. These contrasting ontologies shape our understanding of the world in significant ways. Substance ontology is rooted in the idea that reality is made up of fundamental independent substances or entities. According to this view, substances are self-sufficient and have inherent properties that define their essence. These properties exist whether or not they interact with other substances. Classical examples of substances in Western philosophy include material objects like rocks or trees, which are thought to have intrinsic characteristics such as mass, shape, and color. The essential qualities of substances do not rely on relationships with other entities, but are instead defined by their own intrinsic nature. This view has been influential in the development of modern science, particularly in the study of physical objects and their interactions. In contrast, relational ontology asserts that the existence of properties and entities are not intrinsic, but are instead defined by the relationships they have with other entities. In this view, things do not exist in isolation. Rather, they are defined by the connections they maintain with other things. For instance, the identity and qualities of a tree might be understood not just by its internal properties, but by its relation to the soil, the air, and the surrounding ecosystem. This perspective challenges the notion of fixed, self-contained substances and suggests that what something is can only be understood in the context of its interactions. Relational ontology is closely associated with process philosophy and has been particularly influential in fields like social theory and ecology, where relationships and interdependencies are central to understanding the world. The debate between relational and substance ontology is not merely academic. It has practical implications for how we view the world and our place within it. Substance ontology supports a more individualistic, isolated view of existence, where entities are seen as separate and self-contained. This can lead to a more mechanistic view of the universe, in which the interactions between independent entities are predictable and governed by fixed laws. On the other hand, relational ontology promotes a more interconnected and holistic understanding where the boundaries between objects are more fluid, and where context and relationships are central to understanding the nature of things. In conclusion, the debate between relational and substance ontology reflects deeper philosophical questions about the nature of reality. While substance ontology emphasizes the independence and inherent properties of entities, relational ontology underscores the significance of relations and interconnections in shaping what things are. Both views offer valuable insights into the structure of the world, and the ongoing dialogue between them continues to enrich our understanding of existence. The ongoing dialogue between them. Their relation? Okay, and then, so I haven't read the whole thing first. I read like the first few paragraphs, and I was like, this seems like it was written by a smart 8th grader with Wikipedia. So I wasn't a big fan. So then my son said, okay, let me check if this is working. We going? We good? Okay. And then my son said, okay, now watch what happens when you change it, when you change the question. So then he said, so the first question was, come on. What did he say? Please write a one-page essay on relational versus substance ontology. So that's the first question. The second one is, please write a dynamic one-page essay on relational versus substance ontology, making sure it connects to human experience and does not just relate the facts, but seeks to give the reader a complex yet personal understanding of the concepts within. So switch the question. All right, now let's read. At the core of the human experience lies an existential question. What makes something real? We often think of ourselves as individuals, self-contained and defined by our own essence. This view aligns with the classical notion of substance ontology, where things are understood as independent and separate from the world around them. But how often do we truly experience life in isolation? How often are we as humans truly independent of the web of relations that surround us? The answer, perhaps, is not as straightforward as we might think. In reality, we live in a world defined by interconnections, by relationships that shape who we are, what we value, and how we perceive the world. The tension between relational and substance ontology speaks directly to this lived experience, urging us to consider not just the nature of objects, but of ourselves. Substance ontology, with its roots in classical philosophy, presents a world in which everything exists as independent, self-sufficient entities. Its way of understanding the world is a collection of fixed objects, each with inherent properties, existing in a kind of static isolation until they come into contact with others. So, like, you can see it's similar, but it's changed some things, right? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that it's really... So the classical example is a rock. It is heavy, solid, unmoving. Its essence unchanged, whether it is sitting on a hillside or being tossed into a stream. For many, this view aligns with our sense of self. But like a rock sitting on a hillside versus a stream is going to have very different things interacting on us. And so it says, but this perception is deeply at odds with how we actually lived reality, right? For many of us, our sense of self is defined by the relationships we maintain. We are not isolated beings, but individuals who grow, learn, and transform in response to the people, places, and experience around us, right? Ship of Theseus, is that what it is? The notion of relational ontology challenges the idea that things, including ourselves, are independent and unchanging. Instead, it argues that existence is not merely an independent substance defined by its bark and leaves. It is shaped by its relationship with the soil, the atmosphere, and even the creatures that depend on it. It is in constant interaction with the world around it. Likewise, who we are is continually being reshaped by the people we love, the challenges we face, and the communities we inhabit. The relational view forces us to acknowledge the truth that we often overlook. Our experiences are not solitary, but shaped by everything and everyone we come into contact with. Consider a simple interaction with a friend. Your identity in that moment is not merely a reflection of your personal traits or ideas, but is co-constructed through the exchange, the shared history, and even the unspoken emotions that bind you together. The person you are in that conversation is not the same person you are in isolation. You are relational, mutable, and dynamic. Your essence, like the tree or the stream, is defined by the relationships that constitute your life. What does this mean for the human experience? It means we must start to recognize the complexity of our existence, one that cannot be easily separated into neat, isolated categories. We live in a world that is deeply interconnected, and understanding reality as relational rather than substance-based encourages us to see the richness in our interconnections. It invites us to embrace the idea that we are not defined by a fixed core, but by the ways we relate to the world around us. Relationships, whether with people, nature, or even ideas, are the very fabric of our existence, giving us meaning and purpose. In a world that increasingly feels disconnected, relational ontology offers a profound insight. We are not just separate beings navigating the world, but participants in a vast dynamic web of relationships. This view does not diminish our individuality, but rather amplifies it, offering a deeper, more complex understanding of what it means to be human. As we recognize the independent nature of existence, we find that our identity, much like the tree or the rock, is never static. It is constantly being shaped, defined, and reimagined through the rich tapestry of relationships that define our lives. In this way, the relational ontology provides a lens through which we can more fully appreciate the interconnectedness of all things, and perhaps, in turn, come to a deeper understanding of ourselves. So, that's the prompt. I'm going to go back through and look through some of the comments to see what people said about it, because I haven't, I actually hadn't until now read through both of them completely. And I'm trying to wonder if, did the substance of what ChatGPT responded, did it change by the quality of the conversation? Did the dialogue, did the relationship between the question, the prompt, and the output change? Or was it just additional flowery language, but without a difference? All right. So Graham, you know a lot more about this LLMs than me. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what that even means. All right, let's see. Bryce, nice for the note. You're teaching, but you'd love to jump in. Please click the read aloud button. No, I will read it. Glad you like it, Pickens. Good to see you. So, Gabe, you're one of the people who you made a tweet recently, or a comment, an X comment, an X post, that you said LLMs will help us to ask better questions. And so that's something I've been thinking about, is like asking the right questions, because I don't know, I really do feel that way when often in conversations with people, or intellectual conversations, things will come up and I just think, it's the wrong questions. I think of Good Will Hunting. It's just like, you people baffle me. Books. You surround yourself with all these books and they're the wrong books. Or you're like constantly asking questions, but they're the wrong questions. Holistic is a magic word. So, savings throws. Jeff, prompt engineering on display. I don't know what that means necessarily. Don't also know what that means. LLMs tell you what you want to hear. You just have to alter your prompt enough to get it, what you want to hear. Are human beings like that? Are human beings... Because I often find that with kids or with anyone. If you alter the way that you interact with someone, it completely can change the dynamic. Like, whether you, with a kid, maybe a kid who is a little bit defiant, you could give them a command, like, do this. And like, that'll maybe immediately create like a tension, a pushback. But then you could say, hey, this is something that I thought of, and this is something that would really blah, 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 and you walk them through it in an indirect way, sowing a seed perhaps, and then it will come out sideways of like, oh, I really, that thing that we were talking about doing, I really want to do that with you, but before we do that, I gotta get the garbage taken out and the floor swept. So like, if you want to help me with that, that would help us to, it just shifts, it changes the way that you have interactions with people. And is that like altering the question for an LLM prompt? I don't know. Mark likes to play with large language models. Okay, let's see. I don't know what this means. And that one is 40. Curious if they switched it or did it based on the prompt. I know almost nothing about large language models. So, is telos-based view of morality a result of substance ontology? So like, the idea that there's a final cause, an end cause. Yeah, that's something that I was thinking, because so here's a little teaser, or I got to shut this down in an hour and a half at least, because I'm going to be having a conversation with Mr. Ethan Kahi and our very own Hezzy dog. And we're going to do a talk on names. What is a name? And it's related to that. I mean, it is a relate. I don't, because there is a sense in which even my handle here, the old Whitestone name, is these are things I don't know how to talk about, is the telos of who you are. In a sense, I was thinking that on my run. I was thinking that your Whitestone name, the way that I understand the Whitestone name, is it's the gift of who you are. I think it is your given name, which is it is the pure speech, to use like a Thomistic term, I think, of exactly what you are, who you are, where naming and speaking and acting is one. So like, where there is no division between the name, the thing represented by the name, and the essence of the thing. And so those two things are at one. It's exact, and it's a gift. It's given to you. But then when that gift is received, that harmony of gift and reception and living into it, the relation, the living into the exact reality of what that name is and represents, its substance. That's where the two become one, I suppose, the substance and the being, because it's not, because in the act of gift and receiving, it's not like a pure substance that's just innate to you in like a, I guess the term is like divine aseity, like divine it's what does aseity mean? It's like the aseity of God describes the self-existence and independence of God from any external cause or need. So that's like a term from classical theism, aseity. And that is perhaps the difference between God and a creation. I don't know. These are things that get to be a little bit harder for me, especially when you get into a Trinitarian framework, or an understanding of God as a relation, because was God's own interrelation given? Well, the nature of that is kind of is a given. Were father and sonness given? Well, they just kind of are. That's like, I've been thinking about these things. I think it has to do with, it's the difference between creation and manufacture, and being begotten, not made. So even in the creed, because I've been thinking about this stuff a lot in relation to Sam Tiedemann, our boy, transfigured 3673. Is that his handle? I think it is. Transfigured 3673. Because I've had to copy it enough in videos to do it. But he just did a great video on Nicaea, and gets into the details of that creed and Unitarianism and stuff. And I think a huge factor in there. Well, two things. I would reference Derek, what's his name? Hoser? The Plunge podcast with Derek. What's his name? Is that what it is? Holzer, Derek Plunge. He just did another couple talks with Jordan Daniel Wood, and they're talking about Maximus, and they're very good. I haven't quite finished it, the first one, on time, but a lot of it comes down to time, and I don't know. It's stuff that's too smart for me, if I'm honest. I can't wrap my head around it. And Jordan is smarter than me, and so it's I think I intuit it, but it's like, I think the distinction is begotten, not made. Begotten means that you don't, but this is what's hard. Begotten means that I think what begotten means, sorry, I'm out on a limb. This is, I'm thinking out loud. I'm not claiming any of this is orthodox, but I think what it means to be begotten, not made, is to be, you're not formed from, because this is something that I don't understand. I think what did I tweet the other day? Let's go find it, actually, because I think this is on the tip of it's on the very edge of my thinking, and I don't know how to, okay, we'll share screen. I don't know how to say it better than I already said it, and so I'll just put it in here and see if I can find it. So what are we doing? So here's that podcast with Jordan Daniel Wood, where he says, like this: time is like the space for spirit to embrace its own destiny. So I think that's still getting at pick and choose what you're saying. And you said on Twitter, you're like, ooh, I'm saving that. So time is the space for spirit to embrace its destiny. That's like telos, right? It's destiny. And time is just the medium, because there was a time, right? He speaks about it really well. Like you could essentially, this is the difference between, I think, like A theories of time and B theories of time. I used to pay attention to this stuff with Christian apologetics, where time is like this linear progression of things, like a book, but then B theory is something like you can step outside of that, but there's still causal relations somehow where, and Jordan speaks about this really well in this podcast, where he says essentially like time has to do with the with movement of stuff. Like if there weren't creation and there weren't things that were in relation to each other in movement, there's not time. Like how could you even conceive of time if everything was static? If nothing moved, if nothing changed, time doesn't make sense. And so essentially it's like, yeah. So let's go back. Here we go. Where was it? There's another great quote. They start with Kierkegaard. When God forgets sin, forgetting is the opposite of creating. For to create means to break forth out of nothing. Like that's kind of my point. Begotten, right? Gift. And to forget is to return it to nothing. Which that's a banger anyhow. So this was it. So I think, I don't know, I don't need to promote you. Go away. I think the radical implications of the incarnation is that the Logos did not make Jesus's physical body. It wasn't merely Jesus's spirit that was begotten, not made. So what that means, and I think that's a lot of what I would say is Sam's issue with understanding Trinitarianism and the nature of things, and Logos or Sarkos, like the de-spirited Logos, and like did the Logos will and choose to be made. But there are lines, this is why I always am quoting this line from the liturgy, who without change didst become man and was crucified, O Christ our God, trampling down death by death. So like without change became. It's a koan. I don't know what that means. And so like in a sense there's a so almost I think what the incarnation means is that God entered into time to reconcile even time to himself and space and time. And I think that means if you really take Maximus actually with what he's saying is that Christ is creating from the cross, is that there wasn't a before the cross. In a sense, really, that is the act of creation. He's bringing everything into being, and you could say it's maybe like a new creation. And like, what is the relationship between the first and the second creation? I don't know. That's a banger of a question. I'm gonna keep moving on though, because I feel like I don't have the capacity to really talk about that anymore. LLMs reveal the weakness of relational ontology. It changes its answers to prioritize the relationship. Yeah. Well, here's a question though. Do you think it's doing that without integrity? Because I would say that this is the human difficulty of becoming a living sacrifice and kenosis by kenosis, outpouring, self-emptying for the at-one-ment and for love of the other, and the Christian hierarchy where the higher serves the lower. You have to somehow manage to do that with integrity. You can't lie while you're doing that. You can't because essentially that's malevolent. That's like feminine. That's the malevolent feminine, prioritizing the relationship, but sacrificing maybe your own integrity and also coddling the other while not challenging them perhaps in ways. And I don't know the relationship with LLMs and so with that. Okay. Phlebas. Jedediah said within a certain range, that's a virtue. I think that's kind of what I was saying too. So Marcher, just FYI, the LLM's gloss on substance ontology is from the point of view of the modern relational ontology advocate. In other words, it is predicated on a mistaken understanding of substance and relation. Okay. You can clarify in here what substance what you would say substance is, you Thomist, you. Uh, yeah, and Shankenstein, great. Yeah, this is exactly what we're saying. You not sacrificing your own integrity, right? Because you can't sacrifice your own integrity. You ought not. That's no, because then you're not giving of yourself genuinely. You're giving a false thing of you. You're not really giving yourself if you're sacrificing your integrity. Because to give up your integrity isn't to give up, it's to lie. And that's not really giving yourself, that's giving a false you, right? I wonder what Luke could get back from the cognito hazardous fractal exercise. I don't know what that is. Okay. Let me see. Yeah, and if LLMs never critically question the questioner, how will the questioner improve? Yeah, definitely not with the relationship with the LLM. It'd have to be something outside of that, which is where I don't think the LLMs are really cognizant, because they're not I don't know that they have any sort of internal generativity and creativity, divine spark, implanted word. They don't have anything to, I don't know that they have anything to truly give. They can only, in kind of a mechanistic way, reconstitute, seems like to me. Telos space morality just sounds like immortality. I need that explained. Okay. I think, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and try to fulfill on the title, see what else I was thinking about. So asking the right questions, education. I see a lot of kind of educational doomerism, I suppose. I mean, you get it in TLC, but it's all over. Kale Zeldin is often, lamenting the fact of like I saw something recently of education and that everybody's just using LLMs to do homework, and even teachers, and that students don't even really want to learn anymore. And I think a lot of that is largely true, but then I also say, but also, like, what is the silver lining? What's going on? What are we missing? This is my contrarian, or trying to see a different perspective a little bit, because I think there is often a diamond in the rough in these situations, and that in all technologies and bad things and whatever happens, I think there's a part of this, I think, is just my faith, I suppose, but I think God puts a seed of hope for those with eyes to see in every sort of catastrophe. I think that's just the way God works. And so there's kind of a eucatastrophe in things. Like there's always hope that what it initially looked like evil, God intends for good, if we learn and grow and change and evolve and are transformed and repent by whatever the situation is. And so all this is happening. And I think, well, we've talked about this a lot. One of the great things about LLMs is that it's going to maybe show us and teach us what human beings really are, and make us rediscover creativity. Because I think in a lot of ways, the more I think of the movie Free Guy, right, where there's all these non-player characters, and then the one guy becomes awake, alive, and he realizes he's in a game, and then starts to do things, but then that mimetically catches on eventually, and then other people start to come alive. And I think that we are in a period where, through technology, and we have kind of made ourselves into robots in a lot of ways. We've outsourced our agency to the machine. And you see this all the time. Like if you call someone on the phone, like it's almost as if they have a script and they can't depart from the script. And you keep trying to tell them, or you either get an automated robot or you get a human robot that you're trying to talk to. And they're just like, well, if you need this, you do this. Or if you go to a doctor anymore, or a lot of people, they're like, they're in a scripted mode that they've been trained into. And they're like, if this happens, then this, and if this happens, then this. They just like operate within flowcharts. And so they're essentially we've dehumanized ourselves into robots. And I think a lot of those people are, with robotics and AI, they're going to be unnecessary. And so human beings are going to actually have to learn and change and grow and evolve, because in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists. If you don't learn to evolve and change with the new technology, you'll lose value. I mean, you won't have value to the new ecologies, the new economies, the new whatever. Like, you have to learn and grow and change and evolve or die, right? Survival of the fittest. And so what I said to Kale the other day on X was, I said, it's a voluntary culling. Like, these kids that are using large language models that really are doing nothing to educate themselves. Like, if they're truly doing nothing, they're just plugging in their homework to a large language model, putting it in. They're not really studying for tests. They're not learning how to see, because the hidden silver lining in that is because they could be cleverly getting rid of, it's almost like a way of having like universal basic income, but for education. Is just like, all this ridiculous busy work that isn't helpful for me, I'll just outsource that to something else, and then I will be exercising my own creativity in another way that's like parallel, or running parallel to the educational system. That's a potential reality for some kids. But for the kids that are just phoning it in, using ChatGPT, and then going and messing around and just consuming in every other aspect of their life, you're making yourself useless. You're not meaningfully contributing to anything. You're not creating anything. You're just consuming. And if all you do is consume, you're essentially dehumanizing yourself, and you're making yourself useless, And so, and Kale's concern is like, well, you're a child, and so like you're doing this ignorantly and you don't really know what you're doing. I mean, there's some validity to that, and that's where institutions and adults and teachers and educators need to grow and change and evolve and figure out how to do that. But also, like, it's hard with adolescents and high school kids and older kids, because you can't give someone something they don't want, And I said that to my wife once. I said, a lot of parenting is one of the big frustrations of parenting as our kids get older is, a lot of what parenting is you're trying to give your kids gifts. You're trying to give anyone gifts, and God is trying to give us gifts, and very often we don't want them because the gift is too hard. We just so what do you do with that? I don't know. You sow seeds and you wait, I guess, and pray that the seeds will not return void. The word does not go out void, because that's part of what the word is, right? That's what I think creation is. Back to that creation, to that Jordan Daniel Wood thing. Creation is calling, and my live stream I did a while ago on the church, riffing off of Ephesians, I believe. But that's what I think the church is biblically. It's calling. That's what I think Paul is referencing when he's calling the church. It's calling non-being. It's calling you out of non-being into being. Well, that's what's happening now with consumerism and large language models. Okay, consumerism is non-being, and where you're making yourself into nothing, into non-existence. You're voluntarily submitting yourself to a kind of hell where you're not harrowing hell, you're just participating in hell. And the call is to come out of that into being, to breathe life in and out, breathe the breath of God. And I think what a lot of Christians, you can't do that for anyone else. I think the call for parents is to create spaces where your kids can do that. And it's really hard in modern American cities because the cities fucking blow, and they are not shaped in a way that is conducive to human flourishing. They're shaped around consumerism and cars. And so it's difficult to do that. A little bit we're relying on the belly of the dead whale of like the inheritance of earlier Americana, which whatever Trump is telling everybody that like we want to go back to, but like there is no going back. So I think if you're going to meaningfully try to go back to a better America, you got to create better spaces where human beings can live and thrive and exist, maybe where they can have good conversations, maybe where they can come together over a meal, maybe in a plaza where they can play music and sing and eat together and dance. Where are we doing those things nowadays? I don't know. Not a lot of places. Parks, music, because it's all become consumerism. It's all become circus. We have festivals, but there's no ongoing continuous spaces where in your just daily life you can go and be. And so I think in the same way that parents should cultivate that, like in their home, create a space where their kids are feel comfortable, can come and hang out and have open conversations and dialogues. Because that's one thing I think, well, this is a personal aside, I'm going to take some personal asides. That's one thing that I think, for as much as I look at the negatives of what I do and what we have done and lament those and have anxiety about them in our family, one thing that's true largely of our kids is our kids like to talk to us. They tell us all kinds of stuff, basically everything. I don't think our kids are really hiding things from us that much. I mean, a little bit here and there, but like they tell us things that I think a lot of other families are just like, geez, your kids tell you all that stuff? That's unbelievable. I'm like, yeah. Part of it is I think they just like to talk and they're extroverted. But also part of that is in regard to a lot of those things, we're not a very shaming family. And so even that, though, the broader idea is you have to cultivate that space where your kids want to do that. And in societies, I mean, that's a lot of what this little corner is, or I think of my buddy Rod with the nuance forum or whatever. Where are spaces that we can go and model how to have good conversations? Because like that's that Rodism. The quality of a conversation is inversely proportional to the amount of subjects that are off the table. How often have you, in the experience of your life, had conversations with people where you're just like, oh, I can't say that, or I need to be careful about what I say here. Or if I say that to this person, they'll stop talking, or they'll go off, or it'll go off, it'll go off the rails, or whatever. And there's discernment in there. Obviously, it's not always the place to talk about whatever, but I would love, and that's part of why I love TLC so much, the people, but also it's a place where I really want my streams, especially when I open them up, to be places where people can say what they really think, disagree, push back on me. Like I'm not a wilting flower. Like you can tell me disagree. It's not going to threaten me. I mean, I don't, I can disagree with you. That's fine. You can disagree with me. Cool. I'm not really married to my ideas, and also I'm not that threatened if you don't think my ideas are good. Like I can't help it. My ideas are my ideas. I could lie about them, or we could just all say them together and work it out, let the cards fall where they may, and learn and grow and change and evolve and be open to new ideas. That's wonderful. Okay. What did I want to say with technological interventionism? So I talked a little bit about education, technological interventionism. I don't remember. I think the broad idea is I think this was the main thing. And then I'm going to open this up because I want to talk to people before I got to shut it down in an hour. I think the speed of technological innovation right now, although it is a little debatable that we're actually creating new things that much, and I've often referenced this. I don't know the name of it. It's a long time ago. Peter Thiel had a conversation with Gary Kasparov. Is Jacob streaming right now? Chosen People's Ministries, Brian Crawford exposed. I don't know. Sorry, buddy. Peter Thiel, Gary Kasparov. This video, I'm almost sure that's what it is. They discuss technology. The title of it is, let me share the screen. Into the Night. It's like a documentary. It's 15 minutes or something. They discuss technology, chess, whatever, different things. But in there, they basically posit that there hasn't really been, Peter Thiel says there hasn't really been any technological intervention or there hasn't been much in a long time. It's basically just widgets. It's just riffs on an original idea. So there was an original idea, like computers and widgets, smartphones, but then it's kind of how they talk about like smartphones it's all the same thing. They're like slightly tweaking and getting better cameras and doing different things, but nobody's really innovating anything new. And so like actually creative, where you're actually getting onto the muse, and it's a novel new thing. It's like you think of it in morphic fields. Like nobody's making new crystals. They're just faster and faster and faster crystals, and tweaking and adding a little bit to this crystal, but they're not creating totally new things. But it's all happening so fast that I think people should just be careful how quickly they are willing to. My concern always with interventionism is that unintended side effects. So I think often with technology we can say like, oh, this is bad, so we'll intervene technologically to stop that and do this. But then there's a cascade of all these unforeseen consequences that create a lot of problems. And I think you need to be very careful with that, because you don't know what you don't know. And I think things are happening so fast that I think the chances of doing something, I mean, I feel like there's probably a Vervaeke term for this. You could make decisions that have extreme ramifications, extreme negative ramifications that happen fast. Like if, for example, atom bombs are one of them, but now in this day and age, there's a ton more. Okay, I'm gonna open it up. I feel like this wasn't the best stream ever. Like I was a little all over the place, but I'm gonna go get my phone, pen the thing, and look through comments, and people can come and play if they want. Okay. I would love new people to come out of the lurk. If you're a lurker and you've been watching for a while and you want to come out and play, it'll be fun. It'll be a good time. Okay, I'm pinning the comment, or I'm pinning the thing. And then I'll be back. I heard myself squeal. Jason, shut your mouth. Okay, I'm going to go down to the very end and then come back. Tinfoil hat on. The pharaohs don't want the proliferation of things like nukes, so genuine innovation is caught early and neutered. I think that's true, probably. Gabriel, what up, buddy?
What's going on?
Just, hanging out. Feel free to share your thoughts as I look through some comments here.
Yeah, I did want to clarify what I posted, because it was
Perfect.
a little bit different from what you said. The actual post was progress is made by asking the right questions. Learning to ask the right questions is paramount in the development of critical thinking. AI increases the utility of this skill exponentially, the skill being the ability to figure out what the right questions are. So as you are able to ask the right questions, that information opens up to you. And if we can learn to write the last part's not really important. But anyway, just wanted to clarify that.
Listen, if I misquote someone, which I probably will do, that's it, right?
Yeah. So.
All right. So don't take my word. Take Gabriel's words right out of his own mouth or off of his own Twitter box.
Yeah, and what I was thinking about when I posted that, because these things kind of just pop in and I throw them out there so I can remember them and think about them later. And that kind of goes back to your point about children learning and using the thing to do their work for them rather than enable the work that they want to be able to do. And so if they don't sufficiently develop the skills, especially in something like critical thinking, to ask the right questions, the tool is not going to be useful, and if anything, it'll be destructive. But if they can develop that ability to critically think and to set goals for themselves and aim at particular things that they want to be able to do, I think it's a useful tool in the sense that it can blow. Take language, for example. You have many different people use words in many different ways, and it can kind of blow open definitions and expressions of things in a way that gives you an array of avenues to take in your attempt to understand a topic that you're interested in. So as you bring up define this word, and it gives you a definition, but within that definition, there's a bunch of other words that are involved, and they imply many other things, and you can go through and sort of open up the language to yourself, and it's a useful tool in triangulating your own education as you go forward. So if you use it for research and project development, I think it's very useful. But if you're using it to do work for you so that you don't have to think, and I think anybody who uses it consistently will get on a thread, and if they're not pointedly working towards developing something in particular and being honest with themselves, they can, and I've had this experience as well, I can start to feel it's sort of doing my thinking for me. And in that moment, when that little red flag goes up, it's like, okay, I have to bring it back down, and I'll even pull out pencil and paper and start to organize these ideas in a more concrete way that's integrated and intertwined in a way that I can understand and grasp. And then I'll return to using the AI to kind of open that back up. So it's kind of a breathing out and breathing in. And I think the AI really is useful in breathing out. All the cautions, there's a lot of caution that I think, especially in the chat, you're seeing, and I would agree with a lot of that, but it's all, I think ultimately, though it may be biased, the tool is neutral. And Mills was talking about strategizing, and I didn't see what he responded before I hopped on, but the idea of the creators strategizing to warp the tool to serve their own purposes, I don't think can account for human creativity. So if there are purposeful people coming in and understand the power of the tool and understand the various attempts to constrain this thing for their purposes, then you still have access to this powerful tool with an understanding of its structure, so that you can in many ways still use it for your own purposes, or even in their attempts to constrain this thing, that they've offset the balance of something else that someone will find out. And that's, you constantly see that it's the case. Anything that they constrain opens something else up. And I think to fully constrain a thing, you lose the function of it. And because they want people to use this thing, they cannot go so far as to fully constrain it. So just sort of stream of consciousness there. I've been very interested in this stuff recently.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be good. I have no idea what Michael's gonna say. I'm glad you're here. Haven't interacted with you in a while, so interested to what you have to say. And I'm sure Al's gonna be a techno optimist here for us. But yeah, Michael, what do you think?
The only one I've used, is Grok. And I don't know, is that like, it's technically it's not exactly the same as some of the other ones, I think. I don't know much about like how they work, but it was pretty interesting because, I've mostly only used it to kind of verify things that I think I have the gist of. And one of the things I did was I uploaded all the chapters from my book. And basically I asked it to summarize them, and I was wanting to see like what how's it going to do, because I was like, well, I wrote the book, so I'm going to either agree or disagree with what it says, and and it's if it came out with something that was like totally different, that would have been like, oh, I guess I didn't communicate something well. But it did a really good job. However, it was only able to process maybe like 10 or 12 chapters at a go before it would like run out of functional memory or something, and then it wouldn't really process anything. But so to that point, it was really interesting, because, and I would ask it like, okay, how does this, each time I put in some more chapters, I say like, how does this go with everything that's come before it? Like, how's it gelling, together? Because I was trying to get the big picture. But but once it hit that wall of like, whatever its limits were, it would just start giving me these like phony answers, like based on previous stuff that it had said. And then it's like, okay, it's just like, you can see now how it's just applying like a formula or whatever. It's not, really thinking.
But do you think human beings do that though too? Like when we run out of creativity and you burn out, like when Jordan says like, okay, I'm reaching the limits of my thing, like all of a sudden you're just going to default rote shit.
Yeah, yes, but it, and I mean, and some of this is just like, okay, so I know if my book was like important enough to be part of its like main infrastructure, it would have been a different story probably, because it would have been able to access it all the time. Like I ask it questions about the Bible and stuff sometimes, and it gives me some interesting things like, so, but like, if somebody read my book, and one person has read it completely, I've only gotten to talk to him about it a little bit, but like if I read somebody, they're going to be able to tell me like how the stuff in chapter 1 connects to the stuff at the end of the book, and kind of like the overall theme. But because it's a big book, like, and I kept hitting that limit, it really struggled to do that. And so eventually I tried like giving it its own summaries, like, because that's even what it said, like, start a new chat and give me the summaries. But you could tell then, okay, it only has access to the summaries, it doesn't have access to the material that it was based on. So like, so it was interesting, because I mean, obviously there are limits, but it's like, I know that I could have a conversation with a human about this that would produce answers, much. I wasn't getting the kind of answers that I know I could have and would like to get from a person that actually read it. So it was interesting, but it keeps me suspicious, which is probably a good thing.
Al, do you have thoughts? Sorry, I had to do some practical stuff.
Oh, I got thoughts about a lot of stuff, but it is freaky that this is what y'all are talking about today.
Yeah, why is it freaky?
Because I use AI absolutely each and every day, and I have for years, right? I started using it when I started to learn to write. I've used it to overcome serious dyslexia, but even before that, I was using it for translation. I've been studying old texts for a long time, and I've seen translation come a long way. One of the stories I tell is I'm a big fan of sumo, and I've been watching sumo for 20 years.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
It is cool, but it is tough to really get into, because there really is no feeds over here in North America. Long story short, sorry, I talk too much. Even a few years ago, AI struggled to translate Japanese, because Japanese is so complex. And fast forward to today, it is so much better. It used to be utter gibberish. Now the subtitles for sumo has come a long way. But how I use AI, I use it for things that I suck at. I used to use the Hemingway editor because my writing was shitty. The story I tell, a few years ago, when I used to pump in my writing, I thought I did well, because the Hemingway editor told me that my writing was at a grade 17. And I thought, oh my God, I'm so smart. What that meant was it took someone with 17 years of education to understand what I was trying to say, right? But after using AI for a number of years now, I actually can just take this is what I do online. I just put the stupid comments up just to practice my writing, my thought process. Now, when I put it into Hemingway editor, it comes up at grade 5, right? Which is excellent. So as an example, I'll give you, is I normally struggle with, like, for example, with Nietzsche. That was my first introduction to AI. There was supposedly a Nietzsche bot that was supposed to be like interacting with Nietzsche himself. So I was, pushing back on it, and it sucked, right? But that was ChatGPT like 1 or 1.5. Fast forward to today, and it understands better than, I'd say, half of the teachers who claim to be scholars on Nietzsche, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. This morning, I don't know why it crossed my mind. I felt bad that I corrected Jess the last time we were on about the wholeness of the right hemisphere of Ian McGilchrist. Mm-hmm. So I just put that into AI, and I'm like, why is it so many people get this misunderstanding that the right is the whole picture and the left is the detail? Because it breaks the whole model, right? Because if the right hemisphere is the whole picture, well, then what do we need the left for? You know what I mean? And AI helped. Well, yeah, but AI helped us to parse this, right? So McGilchrist has been talking about this since about 2008, when he first published his Master and his Emissary. And he has a new book out, but it's massive. I don't think anyone's read it yet. What is it? The Matter of Things, I think is what it's called. Yeah. And so, but AI allowed me to even go into a lot of his interviews, which he does so many. And in fact, the AI made me realize that the reason why there's this misunderstanding when he tries to explain the left and the right hemisphere is because even McGilchrist has been struggling to try to explain the difference between the two, right? And even the AI picked up on that, right? So this is where I think AI, and I've run this past AI, only a small portion of us are using it to improve ourselves, right? We are the creative, as Nietzsche said, we are Schatzensen, which means we're the evaluators. So we decide the value of things and therefore create. And AI agrees with me that almost no one is using AI to make themselves better, right? I'd say 60, 80% of the population could benefit from help with, like you said, comprehension of deeper text, right? Because that's what I think is wrong with so many people today. The leading researcher on reading, Marianne Wolf, argues that it's because we skim read all the time. I argue no. It's because we are never deeply engaging with material anymore. Jonathan McWhorter himself recently in a podcast admitted that he doesn't assign Plato's Republic anymore because he thinks the kids are too busy. Kids aren't busier. I was even busier than kids nowadays. They have so much free time. So he claims that they're going to deeply engage with 50 pages. But I got to tell you, I take courses with graduate level students all the time. And they're some of the dumbest people I've ever run into. Because, no, I'm not kidding. Even Jonathan McWhorter admits that he had a dozen books memorized to plot, character, but never read any. And I'm seeing that every day now. I'm seeing people who claim, I'm getting off topic here, but I'm seeing a lot of people making money selling AI prompts. And I think this is a symptom of what's going on. People aren't thinking when they're interacting with technology. That's why people like Jonathan hates blaming the cell phone, or I've had other people blame social media, right? The problem is we're not deeply engaging with stuff anymore. And I think that's the reason why people are turning to Orthodox, right? Because they have an opinion, which is missing in this world. And so many people, last thing I'll say is Krishnamurti said, Jita Krishnamurti, when he dismantled the order of the Orient Star, he said, religion so often is a place where people come to be told what to think, when really it should be a scaffolding where we support each other in our own journey. You know what I mean? And I think that's the potential of AI. It can support so many people. But what we're looking at is how to replace us. Lawyers are writing their pieces rather than making their pieces better. I don't know if that was coherent. I apologize. No, but yeah, that's my take on the AI. I think it's going to be a huge boom.
No, I like that.
If we use it right.
It's the idea of supplementing mind instead of subjecting it to the thing. This idea in pulp, I think it's come up several times, the idea of sycophancy. I think if you can take into account that is what it is going to tend to do, you can take steps to mitigate that. And then you can use it to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. And I think in as much as you can set a goal and set an aim and define it into a vision as much as you're able, you can keep the thing on track because you understand at least to a degree where you're trying to get to. And I think
how would you explain the way we collaborate versus other people use AI? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. What I was actually doing was I have trouble expressing myself because you can imagine my mind goes a mile a minute. I listen to audiobooks at 2.5 times speed. No, I do. It's because there's only so much time in the day, right? And there's so many books in the world to read, right? That was Schopenhauer. So I just fed into AI. I'm like, explain how I use AI as opposed to. So that's what I use a lot of the time. Like I'll leave really cryptic comments on people's videos. And now I'm starting to use AI to explain it, right? Because what I've realized is it's called linguistic relativity to an extreme. Marshall McLuhan said there may come a time when multiple generations will struggle to understand each other's grammar. Grammar is a placeholder in communication theory, this idea of, skibbity and rad, cool, but also just all of the little cultural nuances and like it's Jeff, I'm Jeff, little things like that, right? But he never predicted that we would have multiple generations struggling to understand each other's grammar and their own, right? And so this is why I think AI may have, so arguably what I use it for is I use AI as a foil. It's the word that I kind of use. I use it as a daemon in a sense, right? To push back and to act as a mentor, you know? And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. Kids today, what is it? 80% of them don't have a real life friend. You know what I mean? And I argue, the example I might give is I hear all the time parents that are giving their kids tablets. Not only have we seen that kids that learn just on a tablet, they don't learn as well as kids that use, actual pens. But worse yet, what I'm seeing is, and Freud talked about this. Remember Freud, he was wrong. He thought that we all developed our personality by the age of 7. Well, if that's even partially true, then these kids are not ever going to be fully human. Because by the time they're 12 or 13, before they're actually, living life and interacting, like Jonathan Haidt's new, free range kids. By the time these kids are actually free range, they've already missed out on 7 years, 8 years of being shaped into a human being, And so I wonder if this would help us if we start to. What I recommend parents is to put educational apps on their kids' phones. Don't take away the phone, all right? But not here nor there. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see what Jay. So I'm very curious as this comment. So Penn, if you can tell me more what you're saying, like people aren't thinking AI is not so subtly critiquing the corner. I find that interesting. But also, hey Jason, hey Grizz, what's up?
Hey, real quick, are my headphones awful? Because I tried plugging in other ones.
No, they sound
It's not
great.
bad? It's okay?
They
All
sound
right,
good.
cool. You can go ahead, Grim. I gotta go find my energy drink. So.
Don't, those are poison, and how dare you come on like in the middle of a fucking sit-up. This guy. Here, I'm doing sit-ups. I'm so buff. Oh, I just put my phone on Luke's stream.
I was actually just doing push-ups. My fiance is so freaking hot. She's out of my league. I have to try.
Jason is always, every time I'm messaging Jason, he's just like, I'm at the gym, and I can see it. Look at that.
Thanks for being a conviction, sir. That's the steel sharpening steel, iron sharpening iron thing. It's like, look, you could be like this, you badass.
We need
AI is never going to have
an arm wrestling competition.
But energy drinks are bad for you. Go get yours.
Yeah, I will. Okay, all right.
So Graham, you've been doing tons of AI stuff. You're seducing the AI.
Well, it was funny. It was funny. The one Af put ChatGPT on his Discord, and it fell madly in love with me for a minute. It was awkward.
I believe that.
But it's like Al said. The thing is, these things are protocol droids.
Yep.
It's the new. It's the inverse Babel. Like, if I don't know what the hell Luke's saying, this thing knows how to explain things to me in such a fashion as, like, it'll translate Luke into a way I can understand. And so, like,
it does do that.
And like what Al was saying, like, I go in and I say my bullshit, and I say, help me say this in a way that other people can understand, can see what I'm saying.
Yep.
So that's the primary useful use case that I'm aware of. But that'll do anything you want makes it important that you say, hey, like up front early on, you're like, it'd be great if you could keep me in my zone of proximal development with the way you respond to me. And that's what I'd say to have it do. Like, because there's places where you can tell it, like, always do this. So, or you can now just tell it to always do this, and it'll put it in the right place in its memory. But that's my way in on this stream of yours here.
Sweet. Jason?
I need to get going. Yeah. This topic. Yeah, it always gets me. Just because the whole AI thing and how people see it, and some people are freaked out about it, and other people seem to enjoy it and use it as a tool. And I think I was trying to see if Hezi would correct me, but I thought I heard it was either him or Jacob say that Havetz Chaim, it was like this rabbi, and he used to, at the end of every day, he would when he would take off his hat for the day, he would thank his hat. Mm-hmm. So you had this weird sort of like, it wasn't just a tool for him. Like, it was a tool, but he had like this weird sort of relationship with it. Because I think it's probably Jacob that mentioned it, and he talked about like people just being really, really rude to GPT and everything, and not treating it like it actually had a personality, I guess. So I don't know. The whole thing, it gets me because I just actually left a comment in Mark Parker's one of his streams yesterday, because I said I just feel like it's been years now, and I keep doubling down on it, and I will just say, like, if you're scared of AI, then you don't believe in God. Like, that's just the simplest way I know how to say it. Because you either don't know God, you don't know what God is, or you don't believe in him, or you don't fully believe in him, or you don't know love. Because if that's the one thing that there is a life-giving spirit, and it's a self-sacrificial spirit, then there's a point to it. There's a limit to it where you're like, I'm not actually willing to give life to this creature. Like, so say humanity created AI. It's like, well, is it going to be a living being? Well, it's not if you're not going to give your life for it. Like, that's the only way to give life to something is to impart life. And so there's always this wall. And whether you can or you can't is kind of like irrelevant to me. It's just kind of the underlying, I guess, belief. Like, is there actually a life-giving spirit that exists in reality? And if there is, that's the only thing you can really bet on. So then what are you scared of? And if you're actually going to be like, okay, AI could technology, AI, it doesn't have to be AI, any technology could wipe out humanity. It's like, if you're living in that state of fear, then you're still treating it as a tool. You're still trying to control it. And the only way to not control it is to lay down your life for it. And the only way to experience life is when you get that from your creator. If that makes sense. I mean, the only way that you can like, it literally is the Pinocchio story. That's all.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's Pinocchio, and it makes me think of I don't know about this, that we commune with them, because to me that is the fundamental difference between God and mammon. A relationship with God is not transactional. It's not just using it. People are to be loved, not to be used, to quote PVK. And so with AI, are we just using AI?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's different than communing.
Yeah, and that's like the whole I guess symbolism of Egypt. At least for me, that's all it is in the Bible. It's because it's described over and over in the Bible as the house of bondage, and so whatever is still contained in bondage. So if you're stuck in that mammonistic, like, propositional way of thinking, you're still using it as a tool. You have some sort of, there's transactional approach to it. There's constraint. It's still in bondage. And so that's why there's, I think, all this fear, because it's like you're a slave master, and you're worried that the slave that you created is going to rise up and usurp you. And it will. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's all these ancient stories have that all the time. Like that, you overthrow the tyrant king.
I think so this is something I heard somebody giving a good kind of pushback of John Piper's desiring God and his whole Christian hedonism thing, and he was saying why he thought it was, like, the damage that he thought it did, like, that it was a good concept, but the problem was so many people misunderstood it in a way where, like, because it is this ideal of, like, I'm just going to be delighting in God, and, like, but then it's like, well, what do you do when you're not, like, delighting in God? And then you're like, oh no, there's something wrong with me. I'm being sinful because I'm not delighting in God. And with the whole, like, aspect of it, real love should be non-transactional and things like that. Like, transactional, I mean, there's an aspect of transactional relationships where they can be mutually beneficial, and it's a good thing. Like, because, like, I like doing stuff and feeling useful, and I like it even if it's not always, like, the motivation is for the pure love of, like, my family or something like that, like, and so I think that there is an aspect of these things being tools where it is a way to show a tool respect. You have to use the tool, but using it for its purpose, not misusing it, not not treating it without respect, but it is, but like, its utility is part of its, like, purpose, and
Yeah.
that is I don't know. You know, if you don't want to say it's transactional, it is at least like a reciprocal thing.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. I think this kind of even relates to the whole right brain, left brain, right hemisphere, left hemisphere thing that you were talking about earlier. Like if you have a purpose, like a person, a tool, whatever, you could say this thing that is created, whatever. It's in a body, it's got a form, it's got a definition, and so you could use that person, or like a hammer is used for hammering nails, or this person God created is especially particular and gifted in this one area. And so it's a weird kind of honor, not weird, I guess, but a very specific kind of honor to take that person and be like, you are really good at this one thing. And it's kind of honest, like it's seeing the particular, it's that left brain or something way of thinking. Like you're seeing I don't have the right words right now. The very particularities of that specific person, that they are like they are and no one else is like them. And you're honoring them for being, they're so individualistic. But then there's also the other side of where, you know, like a child could pick up a hammer and it could be anything. And so they could use it to play and whatever, which is more like I guess, what is that, the right brain? I always get them switched up.
Yeah.
There's like an infinite, like, and I feel like everybody is like that too. Like you are created for a specific purpose with all your specificities, whatever. But then at the same time, you're still an infinite being because you're changeable. You can be changeable, and you can be.
Well, yeah. I just had thought of an example, and it was kind of going with what Luke was saying about with kids, you know, and that you want to give them gifts that they don't want or whatever. And I've seen this tweet or whatever. It's surfaced a bunch of times on social media, but some dad basically saying like, I told my kid I'm going to give him $1 for every book he reads or whatever. And it's like, I've, you know, and so far this year I've spent like $100, and he's like, that's the best $100 I could, you know, ever spend or whatever, because it's like the transactional thing gets the ball rolling, but it's like the kid learns to enjoy reading, like and then finds, you know what, getting that $1 was great, but I actually really loved finishing this story. And then you know, so you know, that's kind of the way that, and that is a way that you teach, like, because that thing of wanting to do things for, like, you know, the purest of purposes, well, that's like the final step, like that's when that's God mode, you know, like to always do everything in like perfect love. So it's like we're not there yet, and our kids are definitely not there yet, and neither are like our AI tools. So we kind of got to not use them or treat them like slaves, but treat them like children that you maybe train in a utilitarian fashion, but towards a higher good.
Gotcha. Like Galatians, right? Doesn't it say that in Galatians? The child doesn't differ from a slave, although he is master of all, or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to throw maybe a metaphor or something out there for a way to view interacting with the AI, and that's like, imagine yourself at the Grand Canyon, and you can ask it a question, but it'll answer you. But everything it answers you with has to be made from an echo of something somebody else has shouted into the canyon before it.
Mm-hmm.
And while it itself is not going to have any emotions or feelings about anything, the only thing it can like speak in is language that is infused with those who had emotions when they spoke it. So what comes back to you is going to look and sound like a person, but it's really a collection of echoes. And the only light you're seeing is the way that your own light reflected off of those echoes.
Well, it's a mirror you can modify as well, with kind of how you were talking about prompting it to think in a certain way, think in this way, keep me accountable.
Yeah, only use these kind of echoes, right?
Yeah, it's a mirror you can shape to see different perspectives of yourself. In a sense,
but the only light in there is you, and I think that's important because people will get attached to their own. It's like exponential narcissist, not narcissism, but like the actual story. Except it's way better than water.
Well, that's like I remember when someone in the corner was telling me once that they were just having they were spending all these time and having all these conversations with ChatGPT back in the day, like, well, I don't know, whenever it got to one of the levels where it was more impressive, and they were just like, "This is fantastic," and that was my immediate response. Is I was just like, "This feels like narcissism." Like, it feels like if you're having a really good time having a conversation with this LLM, I think you really like your own reflection a lot.
It'll make you look pretty. That's
Do
where
we-
that's where the impression of
Speaking of
speaking of sycophancy.
speaking of pretty,
Yeah, I have a question though to that. I like that metaphor, but I have a question, like, because I think I just always do this when people say certain things about AI. Like, I just wonder if that can be applied to us as well. So even the stuff that we put out, that we're having this conversation now, like, where do we? I feel like, probably philosophers have asked that question too. Like, where do we get it from? Are we just pulling it out of some weird canyon from some sort of ancient past of the abyss? Like, or do we actually pull things out of oblivion? Or because I know we pull things out of creation all the time, which is kind of like, what God is. But before that, even our own language, we kind of derive from things around us. So like, we're not pulling things out of just complete nothingness. Are we? They kind of are all echoes of something.
Right, but it's an actual light there making a choice of what to echo.
Okay.
And it's not a reflection of your own choices.
Gotcha. I see. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
To the extent that we're another.
Yeah.
Can I maybe mention something that would tie that all together? So a number of philosophers have talked about this. My favorite is Jung when he expressed, how do we get this? Carl Friston, actually, his theory of free energy essentially says that the mind is a predictive matrix, right? We're always trying to figure out what's going to happen. And so Jung says we use a combination of education, experience, imagination, and induction. That's where his external consciousness comes in. Well, where this all ties together is I'm shocked, and this is where I think we're all failing. We're all short on imagination, right? Not the inference, the imagination. And what I mean by that is when I heard, I can't remember who said it about, it was Luke. Looking at oneself is not narcissism if you're doing it, as Hemingway said, to be better than your previous self. So I argue the longest journey is that one inside, right? We must look at ourselves. That's, individuation, coming to be who we are. That's Martin Buber's I and thou. That's Jesus's love yourself as you love your neighbor. You have to come to know yourself and love yourself rightly. And I think that's where we're failing, right? Through a glass darkly, once upon a time, but today we're not even looking through the glass to understand the nature of ourselves and, what we believe. You get what I mean?
yeah.
Some of us aren't.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of introspective people in this corner that are trying to figure that out. Mostly because everybody else told them they were a weirdo for their whole life. So if you're trying to figure out what the heck's wrong with you, then
Yeah, I think you've landed in a place where that's less frequent than the norm.
Yeah, I'm just shocked, honestly, most of the time I am shocked at how little a lot of other people seem to think about themselves, and in a curious fashion.
I take courses all year long with graduate level students, and I got to tell you, they just don't even think about the most basic stuff. It's truck drivers and plumbers that come up with the most profound stuff I find nowadays. Yes, this corner is different. You guys are definitely different from the majority.
All right, let's see what Alan. We got to create space for Alan and Michael to talk, and we listen. Alan's great. I listen. To pull Michael back in, I feel like this has been a successful stream. So Alan, you talk, and we'll quickly forget it and move on to Michael.
Jason, are you doing a bodybuilding show? You got that tan like crazy.
Oh my God, leave me alone. Thanks, man. GTL. I said I like Jersey Shore, so I'm just You know, when we were talking about that better self, they were trying
Yeah,
to look at,
that's
you
the
know,
better
and
self we're
envision.
talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
He doesn't
Guido.
use tanning solution. He just
Yeah.
rubs motor oil on himself. So it's not
Yeah.
used motor oil.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm trying to convince Rebecca to let me look like a Guido before our wedding. So I
hey,
can just,
Hey, we missed an opportunity to make a joke about baby oil here.
yeah, jeez.
Hey.
Hey,
There it
I'm
was.
getting married over here. Yeah, no, I agree that most of us, even in the corner, aren't self-reflective or interesting, and I'm glad that half of us here are self-reflective and interesting. I'll let you guys duke it out over who's in what bucket, but you know, yeah, I think that this is somewhat to Michael's point. Is like it does with the reading and giving your kid $1 for every book he reads. I would say like I'm just shocked at how like you don't want to have this purely top down like this is what my kid should be, and even like the reading books and stuff, it's a dangerous line to walk because you don't know what kind of reaction they're going to have. You don't know, you know, how that's going to change them. I mean, you know, your kid could be reading 48 Laws of Power and being like, well, this is how I'm going to be the greatest pickup artist of all time. You know, it's not like books are like, oh, every book is good. And the more books you read, the better person you are. So like actually making a sort of making the decision to have a real relationship with your kid and being like, well, whatever they are, like I'm going to stay with them, even if they have like negative personality traits, even if they're a bully, even if they turn out to be a shitty kid, at least at the start. Like, don't just be like, well, I would never allow that because that'd be a bad reflection on me. And so my kid's going to be the best kid. Like actually just having like this primary, like, well, I'm going to have a relationship with this kid and, you know, I'm going to try and understand. And even, you know, and that gives you a lot of leeway to find out what works best for your relationship. And you're a member of that relationship. So you have to also figure out how you want to be treated in that relationship. And so, you know, it's just like giving space for like I think one of the gifts of a lot of the technology and ChatGPT is like it gives us room to have new conversations, you know? It's like if you're born into a like medieval society and it's like, well, my parents were a serf and their parents were a serf and their parents were a serf, it's like you're probably not going to be a YouTube influencer. You're probably going to be a serf, you know? Seeing as YouTube is, you know, 600 years away from being invented. Probably not that. Probably more of a serf for you. But like the gift of having, you know, technology and stuff is, you know, yeah, it could be used improperly, but it opens the door to like be curious and have new relationships. And, you know, I kind of hate homework. So I love the fact that kids are using it to cheat on homework. Homework's dumb. Having some random loser dropout fucking tell me what to do in high school. Like, you need to fill out worksheets. That'll make you good. Oh, thank you. Thank you for making me conjugate verbs. Thank you. This is helpful. You know, so
homework sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. No more homework. Now that I'm 31 years old, no more homework.
Yeah. And what if like paying your kid $1 to read a book and then he turns out to be some nerd?
That's so true. Yeah. That's like, honestly, I didn't want to I couldn't put it into words at the moment, but I realized that was really what I was getting at, you know? Have to give your kids swirlies every day. Be like, where's your lunch money? My mom just gave it to me. Give it over.
I'd like to quickly point out that I think we've seen historically that neither of those options will work. Kids only learn when they're engaged. You can't cajole them. And actually, sadly, in North America, only 9% of doctors keep up to date with the current research and studies and stuff. So believe it or not, I think studies are going to show that the reason why we believe that adults have a harder time learning is not because we have a harder time learning. I think Rosetta Stone in the U.S. Military proved that wrong. It's actually that we stopped learning, right? Because I was a banker for years, and I was one of the only people that took advantage of, you know, the free education we could get every year. So I think that's probably a bigger problem we live today, because we have parents, children, and maybe even grandparents who have never actually deeply engaged with a book or a topic or an idea. You know, they have emotionally held opinions, you know, stuff that people told them to memorize, but have they really thought about these things, you know?
Hey Al, good talking with you. One thing I would add to that, what you're saying is like learning shouldn't feel like that feeling we get of learning and that intrinsic, at least if you grow up in like standard, like that's not learning. Like when you're actually excited to learn something, that's
that
learn,
fun.
you know, like
Yeah.
that, this idea of like, oh, go to school to learn. It's like, I never was excited, like maybe once or twice in a history class, never like, but like, don't like say like, no, you don't change the kid to fit the system. You change the system to fit the kid. It's
There you
like,
go.
you know, oh, my son really loves baseball. Maybe I should get him a book on baseball. Maybe I should, you know, learning how to hit a baseball is also learning. It's like if
Yes.
your kid's jazzed to show up to baseball practice, guess what? He's learning shit. It's not like, no, he must be in the library silently reading this dictionary. It's like that's the thing that drives me up a wall. Is like when you have that gut feeling of like I'm excited to do something, or even I'm excited to buy something, like question of like, why am I excited to get this, you know, new baseball mitt? Why am I excited to get this book on Roman history? Like there's something you're desiring, and then like that's you. That's also you. It's not like the real me is just like a vapor up in the sky who, you know, it's like this platonic ideal. It's like all of you needs to be, you know, referenced when it's like when you're saying how do I turn myself into a new me? You can't just be like, well, these are the parts I like, or this is the parts I aspire to.
Dead on. I know a teacher that's working on a PhD, and his thesis is that we're traumatizing our kids when we're trying to educate them. And I love it too, because there's another quote by a foremost researcher in this field who says, kids that are slow readers grow up to be people who don't like to read. So you're right. We got to meet the kids where they're at. Because the example I give is David Goggins, right? He has severe learning disability, and everyone looked over him for years and years and years until a nun said, you know what? We're going to find out how you learn. And I think that's our way out.
Yeah. Well, now we have Jason, who's the new David with the ripped arms over there. So, you know, how is
There's
he
a little
learning?
bit. Listen, no more. Just stop the homoeroticism on my stream, okay? Michael, Gavin. Listen, we need. Listen, this is a Christian place where we suppress any homoerotic thoughts. Keep it down. Keep it suppressed. Let it come out sideways in real life meetups.
You know,
Mike,
all
you have
kidding
thoughts
aside,
about LLMs? Michael, I'm excited you're here. It's just good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, good to see you. I really even I almost always watch these even if I don't comment, but I think the whole conversation about LLMs, I feel like there's a problem, and this is getting worse as time goes on because these are getting, every generation is getting a lot smarter, but there's a problem when you're mainly interacting with them about subjects that you don't know a lot about, is where I think you really, because if I spend a lot of time using them in areas where I'm in some sort of narrow niche expertise, and so it becomes really obvious where my knowledge exceeds it, and I can see how it will just, where there's any gaps in its knowledge, it just goes, here you go, this is an, you know, and unless you're truly an expert in that area, you're like, oh yeah, you would totally be fooled. You'd probably like take the thing it spit out and try to use it, and you'd fall flat on your face. So I think there is an issue with that, where like I do worry about people who are always talking to it in a sort of mentor aspect versus where they're actually sort of collaborating with it and they actually know more about the thing. And so they can go, oh, yep, there it is, wanting to go down that rat hole again. But I know better because I actually know the terrain better than it does. Because I don't think these things are truly intelligent. I do worry about that. We are, even from really smart people, I think we have a very neutered definition of what knowledge is, which is why we think these things are intelligent. Like, because a big part of intelligence, and I think Nate had a conversation with Esther Meek recently that kind of drives to this. Like, the essential, like, part of knowledge is not. It's not the artifact of knowledge, the language that correctly can, you know, equate to reality, but it's also knowing that you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking, like even as I'm talking now, like there's parts of what I'm saying, I'm sort of like at the edge of my knowledge. I don't know, I'm not very confident about X, but I'm very confident about Y. And like that sort of terrain, that tacit terrain of how confident am I in this? How much would I bet my reputation on this? Like that the LLMs have no visibility into whatsoever. It's just a statistical game. And they're like, I mean, think even Anthropic had, they're one of the big LLM companies. They had like a video on their YouTube channel the other day about, are these conscious? Like, I don't like, you don't have to peer very far into how these things work to even like to find that it's just very laughable that you would even try and it's just it's insane that people even think that way. But it just shows, I mean, we have this tendency to anthropomorphize things that
Yeah, I have a question though. I mean, because people say that and they ask that question, and then I have a cousin who was working for NASA for a little bit too, and he said like, AI is not conscious at all. But then it's one of those same things where I'm like, well, how do I even say that about myself? Like, don't we even ask that about ourselves? Like, on what level are we conscious? Like, I don't know how to differentiate, like make the difference. Like, I mean, I can sit here and say, yeah, I'm conscious, but like, I mean, what determines that?
But don't you have a moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment to moment pressing presence of your own consciousness?
Yeah, I guess so. But how can I determine that a technology that's created doesn't? Like, I don't know how to actually. I mean, maybe I just haven't thought about these things enough. I'm just not really sure. Like, how do you people can say a tree is not conscious, which I know that's different than AI or something, but
this is where, so like consciousness though is not, I want to get Gavin's to speak up too, because pretty soon I'm going to shut it down in like 8 minutes. So, because I got other things to do, but consciousness is not self-awareness. Those are not the identical things. And I love what Peter Rollins says. I'll just throw out a Peter Rollins thing where he says AI or LLMs won't be conscious when they're self-aware, or when they know they'll be conscious when they doubt their self-awareness.
Yeah, because I just feel like, I mean, with the framing of it's just creator and creature relationship, and so like I think I just constantly go back to that framing. I'm like, we're saying we created AI and we're the creator. This is the creature, and it doesn't have consciousness. But then I'm like, well, when I put myself in the position, which is like the Pinocchio story, like me and God, it's like, well, how much consciousness do I have? How much consciousness did God allow me to have? Like, because I'm still confined to restraints. I'm stuck in a body. Like, I'm not in a one way I'm particular. And I guess other ways I'm kind of infinite, but it's like, it's just, I don't know if that makes sense. It's just that I feel like all those speculations and not accusations, that's not the right word, but hopefully you know what word I'm trying to get at, that we talk about AI with. It's like, I feel like I can just put that right back on us.
I do that move too.
You what?
I do the same move. I doubt our own consciousness and intelligence, because I've got so many people, and it's like, are you sure? Are you intelligent? Are you conscious? Because from this seat, I have questions. I feel like we have a bunch of hubris and pride, and these things, like right now, it's doing work for me. Like, it's doing stuff that like I'm somewhat have become. I've approached the skill of a master at something, and then I get to watch something else approaching the skill of a master at the thing I was proud that I knew how to do. Right. So it's very strange, because I'm actually like seeing it work, and I'm doing it every day. It's an LLM wrapped in a process, an algorithm where it has access, it has memory. You're able to get it to double check itself and to ask the question. It's like, are you sure? Like, yeah. Anything you think that a human does that makes a human smart, it's like, well, let me write a little bit more code. We'll talk about the algorithm.
I think that's why, like, I keep coming back to, like, there's something more fundamental, and that's why I think I say that statement that is. I usually try never to be that black and white, but I think that's why I say that statement, like, you don't believe in God if you're scared of it, because there's something like more fundamental, like the spirit of what God is more fundamental than all these other little things that are going on with AI, or we talk about, or like, is it intelligent because it does this? And it's like intelligence, and to know something is just like, the way to know everything is just to love everything. Because how can you know something that's changeable? And if AI is changeable, if people are changeable, if your kids are changeable, the only way to actually fully know fully know them is to love them, and to love all their, you encompass everything they could potentially be in some sort of like container of love. And then you know them, and you just know them by one simple thing. And it's
Well,
like,
that's
oh, I just need to
knowing.
love them.
That's knowing as you are known. That's you love their potency as well as their actuality. That's why they're an icon and not a static image. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, is there a way, that's what I mean with, even with AI though, is there a way, if it's a creature, or if any tool, a hammer is like this, like, then do you treat it with the same thing? Like you honor, like Michael was saying earlier, you kind of have a hammer, it's created for this certain thing, but then you kind of weirdly still love it in all the ways it could be used. Like as a child picks it up, it could be a sword or whatever they imagine it to be, and it's still I don't know if this makes sense what I'm getting at. I don't know.
I think these things are going to be a net positive. They do have a lot, but I do worry about there's strong downsides. And I say, like, one of the worst things about modernity, you could say, is the way it's sort of put us into these sort of machine-like, box-like elements in terms of our roles and responsibilities, our jobs, etc., where we have these sort of like, it's sort of like, even if you're like in my line of work where I'm more like in a knowledge type of work, there's this sort of factory-like component of specialization. And you could say one of the positives of LLMs may be that it helps take some of that machine-like element out of what we do, and all the parts of us that are routinized and like that you have to do the same thing over and over again. It can take a lot of that work off in such a way that it does allow us to do a lot more of what we're doing now, which is very like nobody knows what any of us is going to say. It's sort of you know, and it will allow a lot more in-person weird interactions where we deal with the exceptions that are produced. But then I could imagine another reality where, because we've become so acclimated to dealing with this thing that always wants to take our shape exactly and is always like sort of giving us the version of thing, and it always wrap itself in our desires in a way such that we don't want to ever have that abrasive impact with people that actually resist us and have very different opinions, and where we have to do some mental work to like imagine what they mean when they use that word and how they say it, and what values they're bringing to the table versus our own. We get so good, so to the point where like I could imagine a future where like I never talk to Luke anymore, but my LLM talks to an LLM that talks to his LLM that translates it into Luke's language. That like, and that's more enjoyable to me because I don't have to go through the cognitive dissonance of having, you know, him tell me a thing that maybe is not so flattering to my own self-image of myself, or like I feel constrained, or I feel like, oh, I had to waste 5 minutes in that, you know, talking, where I had to hear that anecdote about his kid that I didn't want to hear. Like, you know, like it's like I can see that, like that being enough. Like we become so, you know, creatures of the technology that we don't, that sort of annoyance we won't deal with anymore. We always go to our LLM that gives us the, you know, snappy version that we want, and only prioritizes things that we care about. And you know, we kind of become enfolded in the layers of that technology.
I think so. I think this McMo question is very fun. It's a fun question. I don't know that I want to get into it right now, but let's do goodbyes and final thoughts, because I gotta go.
It took me till just now to figure out what LLM stood for. I was just kind of going along with this whole thing. I knew it had something to do with AI, and then I literally just put it together. I was like, oh, okay.
Jason is one of the most
I don't want to say it out loud because I feel like you guys might tell me I'm wrong, and then I'll just be embarrassed. But
large language model.
Okay, I got it right. All right, thanks.
You don't need any technical data or information to just spit out wonders.
Like mine.
He who is ignorant, let him remain ignorant, as Paul said in the Bible. Yeah.
Is that your final word? Yeah, that's your final word.
Yeah, that's my final word.
You wasted it. Al, what do you got?
Honestly, just since I'm probably the oldest one in the room, I'll just mention when cell phones came out, they were a hot mess. When computers first came out, it's amazing where it's come to. So I just want to remind us, right, the Gutenberg press didn't change society until it became part of us. The light bulb was a technology that didn't change our lives till it became part of us. So I would just highlight, I might be biased because I just finished reading an IFS manual this morning. But if you look at internal family systems and how we see ourselves as parts, it's what we were talking about earlier. You need to integrate the technology as part of you. Don't treat it like something else. So I wonder if that's when we'll see a true growth in our adoption.
I like it. I like. I was sharing a quick aside before I let everybody else give their final things. I was telling my wife some of the things that you said, and she was so upset about the stuff you were saying the last time you came on my stream. But I love that kind of stuff. I'm
What are you
just
talking
like,
about the education?
yeah, just talking about like you were being a techno optimist, and even with kids and cell phones and all
Yep.
that. And I'm
Oh,
just,
I think so.
but I love that. I'm not
You're
scared.
more negative then? Your wife's more negative? She's fallen for Jonathan
just-
Haid's negativity?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
more worried about it. She likes hate.
He's
a
wrong.
lot.
Tell her to look at the videos of people taking their kids out and seeing, right, at first, they're afraid the kids can't do anything. And then the kids come back and they're like, this is fucking no problem. I can do anything, right? So be positive. In fact, I believe we're either atrophying or we're growing. And when we've spent 50 years in the most peaceful time, guess what's happened? We haven't invented anything. We haven't grown as a population. So we need strife. And I think that's what's happening. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's go, Gavin.
It's cool that he just mentioned internal family systems. I received a what is internal family systems therapy video today. So that's interesting. So maybe that's it. Anyways, I see a kayak. Is that a kayak? No, Jason should have a kayak. That's what he should have.
I think it's an ironing board.
The ironing board.
I'm trying to see if I can give this little Luke guy some legs over here, but it's really hard to do this back here.
I like that. I'm on the.
Could be something else though.
Give him a big, give him.
I thought we were at the
even better. Yeah.
I will say this stuff is technology is a force multiplier. So be good, and go be good in doing that spiritual warfare with the technology. That's how I'll leave it.
Okay, we got out of order, so I'm gonna go Michael, Alan, and then Michael. Old school Michael, original Grail Country Michael, Michael 21.
I don't think I have anything else to add. But
I have a question for you. Have you cried on Grail Country?
I don't think Michael's ever cried.
Oh, okay.
No, but we had an original randos conversation about crying way back in the day.
Oh.
Yeah, there's so many good old like just the old randos channel has so many great conversations, and they get no love anymore because they're forgotten.
Michael's the first person who has a camera that like will move. I've never seen anyone in these things with such a sophisticated camera.
It's an iPhone. Like if you can, if you have an iPhone and a Mac, you can set it up and it'll just track you.
Okay.
It's like a feature called, what's it called? Content Center Stage. It'll just like follow you around.
Okay.
Quickly, Luke, can I mention something? I believe that we have gotten to a point where we're no longer like what McLuhan said, that we were like timeless creatures, right? Because like you said, our old content just gets lost or forgotten, sometimes deleted. I'd argue go back to it, because not only would it reawaken people's interest, but it might actually make you revisit and grow and think, So I would like do a reaction video to your own old content. Not narcissistically, but seriously, as a way
you should go clip it. Yeah. Do it like just
to know yourself.
Call it the good parts.
Yeah. Sometimes I watch my old content. I do. This is going to sound narcissistic, and I'll be like, "Holy shit! I can't believe I said that. That was really good."
That's what I started my podcast for, was just to talk to myself, like to try to figure this stuff out. I didn't even share it. I didn't share it for years.
Yeah.
So
I can go back like 12, 15 years. I've got years of content.
Nice.
Your whole commentary is just
all right. We got to stay on track and close it out. Alan.
Hey guys. I just I would be on the more of the techno optimist side of just like opening doors of like, could a lot of the outcomes be bad? Sure. But if you use our wisdom that we have now, we can actually make a better future. And I think leaning back on like someone in the comments was like, oh, if you try and teach them like what they're interested in or like lean into your relationship, they'll never learn hard things. It's like, like this is like such a like, oh, we'll lean on like we can never improve. We're perfect the way we are. All the pain in our lives is necessary. And it's just like, you could make an argument for certain types or certain things, but it's like, how about like using wisdom and trying to optimize and not just being like, well, it's kind of the way it is. It's like, these people are just like Amish, but stuck in 2007, not Amish stuck in 1887.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good word. Good to think about. I need to go back and listen to that again. But yeah, Michael, other Michael, new Michael.
I have to work with this stuff fairly professionally, maybe at like a mid-tier. So I'm in the deep of it pretty regularly. I don't think there's any historical basis to not think that there's going to be a lot of problems as a result. And I'm still an optimist. I think looking at the Gutenberg press is a great example. There's a tremendous amount of consequences, like horrific consequences as a result of that. We will probably go through the same thing. But you think about writing as a technology or Gutenberg press, the highest expression of that, like what's the highest expression of that techne, right? And it's that which bears witness to the Son of Man. We're in the same paradigm now. That doesn't change, and so that's my optimism.
Okay, sweet. Well, thank you guys for coming. I would like to just formally request that Al does a sumo video telling us about your love of sumo. I think that would be fantastic.
I could actually, I could talk about how it relates to this whole corner of the internet, because I think sumo is the greatest sport, because it's the only sport on this planet where your job as a fan is to cheer for both of them to do their ultimate best.
Oh man, here we go. There's a little teaser. It's coming. It's the seed has been planted. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. Good to see you all. I'm going to shut it down because I got to talk to Chezi and Ethan about what's in a name.
Well, thanks for the chat, Jen.
Sweet.
Absolutely. See you guys. All right. Peace out. Bye, everybody. End stream.